so I have a cleaner one for YouTube. Next story of the day, we're going to go to UK, to Brighton. The Brighton Council in UK approved for a non-gendered sex education class. They're telling people, or they're going to tell the kids, that boys can have periods too. Okay, so I try to not be like other, I guess, people that are more maybe right-wing leaning or whatever, and how they're always just like talking about trans all the time. It's like, yeah, give it a rest. It's not that popular. But what really bothers me about this story and why I'm talking about it is because this is children we're talking about. Children are very impressionable. I mean, they're 8 years old. And I want to get into a psychology technique that for some reason these liberals, left-wingers, and the media, and people on the right wing, actually, to be honest, with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, no one seems to understand this basic psychology. So I'm going to school all of these people, and I'm going to let you know how you're destroying the minds of millions of people, and that's why drug overdose and suicides are on the rise, and life expectancies on the low. I'm going to tell that in the next story. So I'm going to give you an example, and then we're going to put it to these kids having tampons, or boys having tampons. So the reason that so many people drink Coca-Cola and Sprite and all of these Fanta and all of these sodas, it's not because it's good for you. It's actually terrible for you. My grandpa used to have an analogy. He used to pour a soda on paint and show my mom and said, look what this does to the paint on your car. Soda eats the paint on your car. And he said, what do you think this does to the human body? That goes for cereals too. They have like paint thinner in certain child cereals. I mean, these are really sick people that are doing this. But anyway, soda, the reason so many people drink soda is because there's a lot of advertisements to soda. There's a lot of accessibility to soda, so it's everywhere, and people drink it because of that reason. Not because it's healthy. It's not particularly that good. It gives me the hiccups and stuff, although it does taste good sometimes. The real reason that everyone drinks soda is because it's heavily backed by advertisements, more so than almost anything else. And it's backed by Warren Buffett loves Coca-Cola, I believe. He made a lot of money on it. Anyway, let's take that same psychology to transgenders. First of all, transgenderism is like a very, very low percentage of the population worldwide. And there's also a very high suicide rate among transgenders. This is not a hate speech or anything. This is like Caitlyn Jenner will tell you that. The transgender community will tell you that. It's a real problem, and it's not good. I do personally believe, and you could have your own theories, I do personally believe that some people are potentially meant to be transgender. I think there are kids that are born with two heads, and there are Siamese twins, where you would ask a normal person, do babies have two heads and our bodies can join? And you'd say no, but that's not true in all cases. Sometimes they are. It's very rare, but it happens. I do believe that transgenderism is that type of case where someone may be born into the wrong body. That's why you never see me hate on transgenders, and I have a lot of transgender supporters, because I don't know how they feel. Who am I to tell you what you're supposed to be? You know yourself better than I know you, and if that's how you feel, I support that 100% as an adult, and I think it is a real thing. However, if you do what Brighton Council is doing, and if you do what Twitter is doing, and Snapchat is doing, and these psychopath liberals are doing to these kids, you're advertising transgenderism. So now you're going to have way more kids that think they're transgendered. You even have, and to me this is child abuse, they should go and arrest these parents. You have parents injecting their 3-year-old or 2-year-old or 4-year-old or 5-year-old with hormone pills. I mean, you don't know what you are when you're a kid. You think you're a firefighter. Some people think they're a spaceship or a dinosaur. It's like, you don't know what you are until you're like in your mid-20s. So the fact that they're injecting these kids with pills, I think that's child abuse. I think you should wait till they're older. And what they're doing by doing these sex ed classes, they're making more transgender kids that aren't truly transgendered. I'm going to separate. I think some kids are truly transgendered, and I'm sure life is hard for them. But there's way more people that think they are now because they're constantly getting advertised for it. It's the same reason people drink Coca-Cola and Sprite. It's because it's everywhere. Sometimes you just grab it and you want it because you're told billions of dollars are put into telling you that. Same thing with transgenders. And it's not cool because there are a few people with that, but now there's way more. And say, I'm just spitballing. Say 80% of these kids who think they're transgender aren't really transgender. They're just caught in the moment and caught in the advertising. Now you're psychologically and possibly physically destroying that kid's life for the rest of his life, and potentially like sexually altering him so he can never be the same again. And you wonder why. I'm going to get into my next segment. You wonder why drug use is up. You wonder why life expectancy is lower. And you wonder why suicides are on the rise. It's because of psychopath liberal and progressives telling kids when they're 8 years old that little boys can use tampons. Like, there's no reason to bring this into school. It's not woke. It's not helping anybody, because you're shifting all of society to pander to a 0.00005% of people that these studies are still not really conclusive on, and there is a high suicide rate, and it is a problem. So what they're doing is actually raising the suicide rate amongst kids, which they're doing in many other ways. They're confusing kids. They're burdening kids with this like ridiculous ideology. And young boys don't use tampons. Girls use tampons. Girls are born with vaginas and they use tampons. Boys are born with penises and they don't use tampons. What you want to do when you're older, if you feel a shift and you want to do your thing, I'm all for that. It's love, peace, positivity, and libertarianism. Like, do whatever you want to do. But this is straight up child abuse. And at what point, before I get into the next segment, at what point do we call these people out for what they are? They're sexual, and not specifically in this case, I do think it's psychologically abusing these kids, but they're also sexualizing a lot of kids. You have the New York Times publishing articles about like little boys that are 8 years old and 10 years old wearing makeup, even for girls. I'm not a big fan of makeup in general, but it's not up to me. But I don't like the fact that they're like showing little girls in makeup. I agree with kind of what Jordan Peterson says on this topic, that makeup is put on your face to look rosy. Your cheeks are red during sex. It's to like sexualize yourself. And I know a lot of people don't want to admit that or think that. Maybe you use other colors for certain reasons to cover up skin or, pimples or something. That's one thing. But like, it's to enhance your physical features. When you're 10 years old, I don't care if you're a guy or girl, you don't need to enhance your physical features. You're not going to a club. You don't need to sexually impress anybody. You're a little kid. You should be enjoying playing on the playground, where you might sweat and, it might drip. Like, you should be a kid. But they're sexualizing young kids. At what point do we call them sexual abusers? And like, it's almost like they're sexually grooming these kids. Like, they're sexualizing these kids. And when, like I said, there's a lot of human trafficking and hundreds of thousands of kids, if not millions of kids worldwide, that get used as sex toys without their permission. And for some reason, the progressive and liberal left mysteriously doesn't want to talk about human trafficking. They say, open the borders, but they don't know that 80% of women and children at the border, according to Huffington Post, women and children from Central America are raped and sexually abused. It's a huge, huge problem at the border. And they want to literally destroy ICE, which deals with human trafficking. It's the biggest agency that does. Yet they don't talk about it at all. At what point do we just call these people child abusers and sexual groomers? Because that's what they are. If I'm going to get rid of the police department in a town, but I have no plan to stop the crime, I'm a crime enabler. That's what I am. I'm destroying the law enforcement in a town, and I have no plan or strategy to, subsidize or, make sure that crime doesn't happen. They're child abusers, they're sexual groomers, and they're psychological abusers of children, and this is not cool. I don't care what you do when you're an adult, but Brighton, UK, you should be ashamed of yourself. And it's no surprise that the UK is getting infiltrated and taken over essentially by communists and radical Islamists, because probably people that study the religion of Islam look at UK and think you guys are disgusting. And I would agree with them. I don't agree with radical Islam, or I'm not even Islamic personally, but you guys are disgusting. It's like no one respects a culture that sexualizes little kids and does all this weird stuff. And then you bring in this culture which doesn't really treat women and children the same way that you do, and then you bend over backwards for them and put in these communist ideologies that tank the taxpayers of your country. It's only a matter of time until UK rebels or gets taken over by communism or Islam. And at this point, it's hard to really feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for the citizens. I feel sorry for the taxpayers. I feel sorry for the millions of good people in the UK. But their management, their leadership, their schools are an absolute travesty. And they should be disgusted and disturbed with themselves every single second of every day until they stop abusing children. The next story of the day is right on the roughly the same subject.